And in the strangest of moments, these unfulfilled dreams will keep hunting you out. Like the wind searching for a tree to twist, they worm their way closer and closer, even through the cracks in the glass.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. Any opinions or comments made by any guest are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect any of the presenters or network's opinions.
Good day to you. This is Sir Patrick Moore, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal radio network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that introduction, Sir Patrick, and thank you, Count Dracula. Well, here in the UK, it's nice to be able to see a little bit of sunshine for a change. It was nice to be able to sit out and read, and then now I understand we're getting some more snow showers. That's the thing about the UK, you never know from one day to the next what it's going to do. Once again, thank you for the messages that have been coming in. At this point, I must make an apology about the little April Fool joke I played. If you don't know anything about it, then it doesn't matter to you. But anyone that does know about it, my apologies, and I'm sorry about that. Apart from that, thank you very much for any comments and messages that you've been sending in. If you'd like to get in touch with me any time, as always, it's davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. It's davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. That's my email address, of course. Of course, don't forget on Facebook, there's a Paranormal Dimensions support page if you'd like to come and pay a visit if you haven't done already. Okay, today's show, I have another fantastic guest, Mr. Colin Skevington. He's a film producer, director, well, an all-round filmmaker. He's made a well-received film called The Lossin'. It's actually won a few prizes, a grand prize for fantasy at the Vortex Rhode Island Festival in the US is one of them. And there's also a Las Vegas award that he won. Anyway, I'm sure Colin's going to tell us all about the film and a few other things. I know Colin has a great interest in the paranormal and has some abilities of his own. So, I shall waste no more time. I shall welcome Mr. Colin Skevington to the show. Hello, Colin. Welcome to the show.
Hello, David. Thanks for inviting me on. Really pleased to be on the show.
I'm absolutely honoured to have you on. I'm going to talk a bit about your film.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like you to talk more about it than me. So, what was it called?
It's called The Lossin', and it's a 26-minute film, and the theme of the film really is about living your dreams before you die. So it's an intriguing story. It's spooky, it has a very spooky opening, but it becomes funny unexpectedly, and then has a very emotional turn really. So, and it's quite a tale that I think a lot of people have seen it. It's made them reflect on their own lives. So.
It's quite a grim picture. Like on the banner, the what do you call it? Like the show poster. Yeah.
Yes.
Like of the Grim Reaper, which I'm sure
Yes.
people will see in the on the thing. It's what brought that? How did you get that idea?
Well, the initial idea, because I've been a filmmaker since I was 13 actually, and then I became a professional filmmaker. I worked in the film industry initially in Australia, and then worked over here in the UK, and I worked for one of the ITV companies as an assistant director, and then I ended up actually becoming a distributor for the film unit for a major charity, and then eventually heading up the charity. We used to make wildlife documentaries, and then ironically I out the blue came up with an idea for an entertainment show which became a game show called In the Dark, and Julian Clary did the pilot here in the UK, and it sold to, I think it sold to 39 countries around the world. So I've had this kind of broad kind of experience with film really, and then I've made a lot of social issue dramas and corporate films, all kinds of things really, but the Lawson actually came about because I've got an interest in the supernatural and paranormal. I've always, ever since I was a child really, and but I was working on doing some research for a documentary for an American company on the differences in attitude towards death in the East and the West, and I thought this is such an interesting sort of thought, idea, and I thought, in a way it would make a really interesting narrative. So one day, out the blue, I just had a daydream, and in this daydream I saw the opening of this film, which has eventually become The Lawson, and it was the Grim Reaper walking down the path. This 8-foot tall Grim Reaper walks down the path, bangs on the door of this woman's house, and it's a country house, and in the middle of the night she comes downstairs and kind of precariously opens the door, and she's confronted by the Reaper. And basically it's obviously come for her. But then this character appears called the Lawson, and he's like an agent of death for the Grim Reaper. And effectively there's a complication in taking her because she hasn't fulfilled her dream. So the Lawson takes Sylvia on this journey to the point she lost her dream. And it really is the fact that she's a very successful woman. She's become a fashion retailer. She's had an amazing life, and she's kind of resisted this dream, or she resisted this dream, and it's kind of sat within her throughout her life, this unfulfilled thing, and of course she doesn't really want to go there. And the Lawson is kind of a tug of war between the two characters. So it's quite, it goes back into her life as a child in the 50s and the 80s, and her success, and really, her present day life, and of course these final moments of her life. So she's quite a character. She's a very strong character, this Sylvia, and she's played by Linda Marlowe, who has been in the industry a long time. She was in The Saint with Roger Moore, and she was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
I do recognise that name, Linda Marlowe.
Yeah, she's pretty well known. She's kind of somebody who you'd probably recognise. A lot of people recognise, and more recently she was in EastEnders for about 3 years. Oh, right. And
I didn't see her in that. I don't watch that.
No, exactly. but yeah, she's an amazing actress, and she's done a lot of theatre. She did a lot of plays with Stephen Burkoff. She worked with him for about 20 years, and we got the script to her on a Friday, and she said yes by the Sunday. So having her on board was amazing.
That's great, yeah.
So, and Sean Knopp, who plays the Lawson, actually appeared in The Daydream, and I'd worked with him before, but it was weird because it was almost like a film playing out in a dream. And of course, once I'd sort of got this idea, I thought, this could be very entertaining, could be very funny. So I started developing the idea, and it took me a little while to develop the story. But then I sat down and wrote the script, which I kind of wrote in about 6 days, and showed it to a few people, and I got very favourable feedback. And I only showed it to people who I knew would be absolutely honest with me, and got got favourable feedback, and I thought, this could really work, and I felt really driven to do it. There was something that drove me to do it. And the way forward really was because it's an ambitious film, even though it's 26 minutes, it's got a lot in it. And I thought this is not something you could shoot over a weekend. So I thought I'm going to have to raise some investment for the film, and was able to do that. And ironically, the people I asked to invest didn't invest, but the people who did invest, I didn't actually ask. I was just happened to be telling them about the film, and they just offered the money. So, and that kind of continued, that serendipity continued throughout the film. So there was a kind of strange things were happening while we were making it. And I always think if you're meant to do something, then it's almost like things naturally or supernaturally unfold. So,
it seems like you were being fed that idea in my mind from the other side kind of thing.
Well, it's kind of weird in a way. That's how it felt for me, because, I just find that ideas come out the blue, and people will say, well, you're creative, but I do think there's something going on. There's some other connection. And, I always feel, my grandmother was very psychic, and she'd always know who was coming to the house that day, or she, the phone would go and she knew who would be on the phone, and she had that insight. And, I remember my mother was, I think they used to have seances in the house.
Right.
My mother used to tell me. So there was and they also, my grandmother and her two sisters used to go to a spiritualist church, and, their brother, who was older, was a lay preacher, and he really didn't like the idea of it, but they really wanted to go to the spiritualist church. So there's obviously something in the family. And for me, I just feel that, life you're meant, I think we all have a kind of destiny, and we have something that we're here to do, however big or small. And I think our role is to kind of honor ourselves really, and actually listen to our inner self. There's so much distraction in the world, and, our heads can get full up of all kinds of stuff. And I feel we should really be listening to our inner self. And that's really what I learned to do as a writer, because originally I never really sort of believed in myself as a writer. I never thought, I'm not, I had ideas, but I thought, I don't know if I can write. I'm not good at this. And eventually I kind of realized that I was doing it, and I started to get more confidence. But I found that as I cleared my emotional issues out, or my issues, I was able to be freer as a writer, and I trusted, and I did the Alexander technique for a while, which is, often when you mention it, people they all sit up straight because everybody thinks it's about posture, but really what it is about releasing deeper programs in your nervous system, and that frees you. And I found after a whole series of sessions of doing that, I was released. And I always remember the Alexander, they call them teachers, but the guy who worked on me, he says, I always have this line. He says, I always often say to myself, isn't it great? I never came up with an idea today. And I always used to make me laugh, because I thought we're always thinking, oh my God, I've got to come up with an idea. But actually we should also honor the fact that we didn't come up with an idea, because what it's doing, it's taking the pressure off you. So you say, today I may come up with an idea, tomorrow I might not. And it's okay both ways. And I found once I was able to do that, I felt free, and it allowed me to be a better writer, actually. So, and in a way, I did feel more connected. So, whether something was going on supernatural, I don't know, but it did feel like something else was going on.
I think a lot of musicians work like that as well, don't they? Because sometimes they can feel they're drying up, and then,
totally.
and then suddenly something will come to them, even in sleep,
Totally. And really, and it's the ideas do come in dreams and all kinds of things. And for me, I find one of my greatest things is just going out for a walk. I go out for a walk in nature, and I listen to some music or something, and the ideas just come flooding in. And then I'll just work with write those ideas down, and I always work, because I always think we have to work from left and right brain. And, left brain is the more logical side, and right brain's obviously your more creative, the more spiritual side. And I know the Alexander technique said to me, you have a real ability to balance both sides of the brain. And I always think that's what we're meant to do, because the brain's like, it's almost like physically in two halves. And I think we're meant to join it up. And, you know, because before I got into film professionally, I was a computer programmer. So I was very much into that logical side of things, but that's obviously creative in its own way. But when I write, I always feel, right, I'm going to have I have creative days where I'm just putting any old idea and there's no order to it, and I'll just put ideas down and whatever. And then eventually when I come to form them into a structure, when I come to write the script, I become very structured, and then I'll sit down and I say, right, I've got to write so many pages a day. And I will say things like, I won't have a cup of tea. I can't have a cup of tea until I get to the end of the page. So it's like there's that kind of driven side, but then you've got to also have the freer side. And you've got to merge those two together. And I think that's what being on planet Earth's about. And I think we're, in our society, especially in the West, we're too left-brained. Yeah. And we need to free ourselves up, and we're too logical. We're too easily programmed with the left brain, and we need to be a bit freer. Yeah. I feel. I
think it's all more materialistic and watching films and TV, isn't it?
It is really.
Although we're talking about a film in this instance, but I'm not getting at your film. I'm talking about
absolutely.
I'm talking about things that in general, like the EastEnders, as you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, and the thing with film is that it's a great way of getting a message across. And of course with film, you're using images, and of course you're driven by images with film. And of course they're much more powerful than just than words on their own, really, because you're getting images or ideas and things coming through that you're probably not realizing, because the Lawson is very multi-layered and there's a lot in it. And as you know, most films really, a good film should have multi-layers. And of course they can do good things, films, and bad things. I think there's a lot of films out there that I think can disturb people on a deep level. You know, and I always say to people, storytelling is really about a reflection of our journey here on planet Earth. It's a story is a spiritual thing for me. It's like, you know, people used to sit around a campfire telling stories, and the whole idea of a story is so that the audience, whether it's somebody around the fire or sitting in a cinema, they're there to reflect on their own journey in life through the characters in the film. And they may have strong emotional reactions to those characters, but what I feel that's doing, you're reflecting on it, and you're healing something out of you. So I think storytelling is actually very healing. And of course our major way of telling a story now is film. You know, it is the biggest way of getting a story out nowadays. And I think there are people who make films who probably don't really know why they're telling a story. It's like, I think we should study more about storytelling and what it is on a cultural level and on a spiritual level. Yeah. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, people used to read books more, I think. I mean, I know people do still read books, but I think today we want instant gratification more or less, don't we?
Yes.
We want to be able to think, oh, watch that film, boom, that's that out of the way. Let's watch another film, boom, that's that out of the way. You know, I think that's what is expected nowadays.
It is. And it's like box sets. It's like you're sort of ticking them off, and then you've watched series 1 and series 2.
That's like all at one go. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like you need time to kind of absorb things. It depends what it is.
You want to cut all the adverts out.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing with the Lawson is that it took us a long time to make the film because we were working on a low budget, and but I always had the idea that I would do 3, and I've written the next 2, and when I came to the end of the 3rd one, I thought, this could continue. So I'm actually currently writing the 4th, and we're going to have 6.
Great.
And the idea is to do it as a series. So we're going to look for a partner through streaming and, see what the possibilities are and of taking it forward. And I think audiences, particularly with what's going on with the pandemic, I think, people have been stuck at home a lot of the time. And I from people I talk to and listening to others, I feel that, people are starting to look at life a bit differently. They're starting to look at what's important in life and what they're valuing in life. And I think all those things everyone's been used to, we've kind of not had those. So we've had to look elsewhere, for something new. And in a way, I kind of feel with a Lawson, it's all about timing. And we once we completed the film, it took a long time because there's a lot of visual effects in it. And, we entered a number of film festivals, and we were selected in quite a lot, and we won awards in America. But, we had great reception with the film in America, and the Americans are very open to the afterlife and other worlds. I think, they're very much freer about talking about it. And I kind of feel in the UK we're a little bit, we don't want to talk about death so much. I think there's a lot of fear about death, and I think that's because we probably, because if you become too material, then you kind of look at yourself and you think, well, I'm in this body, I'm this person, and once this body dies, then is that the end of me? And of course the Lawson really going forward into the end of the film, which we can't say what happens because
don't give it away.
It's a big spoiler. And of course it's really saying, well, there is more to life than you think. And I know somebody watched the film and came out of one of our screenings at Cineworld and said to me, somebody very spiritual, and they said to me, I came out thinking everything's okay, everything's going to be okay. And I've always believed that life does continue. So the Lawson as a story for me is really, it really is about life continuing and life going on, and sort of asking those questions. And I was thinking earlier actually that anyone who's had children, I don't have children, but I've got nieces and a nephew, and anyone who's been around children, there's a word that children use so often, and that's why. Why is this, and why is that, and why is this? And but as adults we tend to stop asking why. And I think a lot of people don't question things, and I think we need to be more questioning. And and I think the more material we become, the less spiritual obviously we become. And I think religion for a lot of people doesn't work anymore. And I always think, where do people get their spiritual connection? Where do people, where do they find a spiritual mentor or whatever? I think it's hard these days for a lot of people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't consider myself to be religious, but I do believe in spirit. And you like me, you have met quite a few people who really have proven to us that there is a life after death.
Totally.
I mean, you and I have got a couple of good friends who really do. I mean, we'll mention Philip Kinsella, for instance.
Absolutely.
He's a wonderful medium, or clairvoyant, shall we say, call him.
Totally.
And really, he's absolutely convinced of the afterlife, and he gives absolute evidence for it. So
totally.
And other scary things to do with aliens as well, which we may not go into.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree, and I think it's very easy for people to discount something, but I always say to people, have you actually been to a reputable psychic? And often, they haven't. And I always say, well, you're not really qualified to actually enter a discussion about it until you've had an experience, because to me, spirituality is about experience. And if you haven't had the experience, I mean, I've been to several psychics over the years, and one in particular I've known for a long time is Sally Morgan, and I knew Sally way back from '94, and she said the most incredible things in readings to me, and she said the first time I ever went to her, she said, I've got a woman in spirit who's connected to your father. Could this be your mother? And I said, possibly, because she passed. And she said, who's Marjorie? And I said, well, that's her best friend. And she said, well, she's with her. And these are immediate things. And then she said, did he have an accident when he hurt his leg? And I said, yeah, he was knocked over by a motorbike and hurt his leg. And she said, well, it's hurting him at the moment. And she said, you need to talk to him about it. And it was when I spoke to him. But the thing is, people would say, you know, nowadays people say, oh, they'll just look on the internet. And of course, in '94, there was absolutely nothing around where they could have easily checked that. And for her to say these things immediately, and, you know, she, one thing she said to me was, I'd had a business dealing that I had a lot of difficulty with, and she said that this is going to come to an end and there'll be an agreement. And she said it will end in September. And she said, and she told me a sum of money that would be coming to me for this business deal. And then she said, and there's a name on a check. And she said, it's either a lawyer or a name on a check. And I said, well, what's the name? And she actually told me the name. She said, it's Lewis. And I said, well, I don't know anyone called Lewis. And she said, well, this was in April. I think it was 1997. And she said it will end in September. So September came, nothing happened. So it went 98, 99, 2000. September 2001, we actually came to a deal. And it was exactly the sum of money, she said. And I had to go to a firm of accountants in London and sign my shares over in this company as part of the deal. And I knew nothing of who was going to buy me out. And I turned the page to sign, and the name was Lewis.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And of course, I was going to get a banker's draft for the payment. So I thought, well, the name's not going to be on a check. And then 3 days before we were due to get the banker's draft, they phoned my lawyer and said, we can't get the banker's draft in time for the next meeting. Will you accept a check? So I actually got a check with the name Lewis on it, exactly as she said.
Crikey.
4 years earlier, or 3.5 years earlier.
Yeah.
4 years.
I bet you'd almost forgotten about it by then, hadn't you?
Well, absolutely. And in fact, I kind of recalled it, that this was going on, and she'd recorded it on a tape, and I'd listened to it. So for me, it was so specific, that I thought, you know, I've had people say to me, oh, they do it through body language. And I said, well, I don't know what position I was sitting in for her to get the name on the check. But to me, that's cleverer than being psychic.
Yeah.
And the story for me is, what I'd say to people is, you know, don't discount this stuff too easily. And of course, there are people out there who say,
there are frauds out there.
And and I always say there's bad builders, there's good builders and bad builders. And you can't say just because you've come across a bad builder that all builders are bad. And it's the same with psychics. And I would just say to one of the greatest quotes, and I can't remember, I think it was Frank Zappa who said it, was that the mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. And I think it's just a brilliant thing. And I just think anything's possible. You've only got to stand outside at night and look at the stars. And if you can't believe that there's something else going on, then you need to look again. For me, that's how I feel.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
you know, I get that people don't believe, and that's fine, you know, but it's not where I am at.
No. I've had that experience as well. I've had names mentioned to me, and there's absolutely no way they could have known. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I had a medium, and she mentioned the name Shirley, and that's my aunt.
Yeah.
That's my mum's name, my mum's sister. You know,
Yes.
I mean, Shirley's not quite a common name, really. And
No, exactly.
I was quite aghast when she came out with that name, you know.
Absolutely. It's incredible. It's when it's so specific. And when she said a name on a check, I mean, how often do you get that? I mean, it's mind-blowing.
That is amazing. I mean, for all those years apart from it, you know, it's...
Exactly. And I always remember Sally saying that it's easier to predict a month because there's an energy to a month, but it's very difficult to say a year. So she said, I might say something is going to happen in September, but it might be 10 years in time. And because it doesn't happen immediately, people then think, oh, it's not right. And for me, one of the things I think we have to learn as humans, and I think probably we've all had to learn this year, is we need to be patient. And I always say that about healing, you know, and my view, I don't know whether this is where it comes from, but I think, you know, people in hospital are called patients. And I always think it's because in order to heal, you need to be patient, because things happen over time and in a set time. And nowadays everybody wants everything now, everything now. And I think we do need to be a bit more patient. So, and I feel like I've been waiting all my life to do what I'm doing now. And I feel I feel I'm beginning my journey, that I'm meant to be doing. I think everything leading up to this point has been very much about, preparing me to do this stage of my life. Sure. I might be wrong.
And there could even be even greater things beyond that as well, couldn't there?
Yeah, and we don't know, and I've no idea. But the thing is, all I can do is I'm driven, because there's a line in the Lawson where the Lawson says to Sylvia, he says, there are two types of dreams, those of the heart and those of the mind. The ones of the mind we call nightmares. And to me, if you spend your life in your head, thinking, it's actually takes you away from the inner voice. And I found that when I stopped overthinking and I could let go, I could spend time in more peace within myself. And I did that by healing my inner issues. And there's lots of ways you can do that. But I found I was in peace inside. And that's when I find, everything comes to you, and you don't need to overthink. Yeah, you do. You've got to do practical things in life, but there are times when you just need to listen to that inner voice, and I think people have forgotten that. Yeah. I think we need to redo that. Yeah,
that is absolutely true. I'll tell you, when I was in my job, I had some very complicated electronics. You'll know what I'm talking about with things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'd have to, because I had to do fault finding and things like that. And there were occasions when I had to think, how the hell am I going to sort this out? How am I going to fix this? And I'd actually go home worrying about it, and I'd go to bed. But strangely, in the morning, I thought, I know exactly what I'm going to do. It just comes to you while you're asleep.
It's incredible, because it's almost like, and I was thinking about writing. I think, early on you kind of think, oh, I've got to write this and I need to get this done. And that's when you actually say, no, I just step away and I just leave it. And, because it's not working. And I think we can be more productive by stepping away. There are people who say, oh, you should do 50 minutes on and 50 minutes off. And, I always find that sometimes when I need to get on and do something, I can work long periods. Yeah. But then when
you're not a machine, you can't just switch.
You're not a machine.
You can't just switch yourself on and off. No.
Absolutely. And I always feel that the connection, whether it's connection to source or God or whatever people want to call it, it's almost like the computer. If you go on the internet, you're going on there to look for information, and we have no idea in what country that information is stored on a server. So it's out there somewhere. It's not actually on my computer, but it's drawn into my computer, and then I look at it, and then basically it sort of gets sent away again because I'm not looking at it anymore. Yeah. So is that how we work? Are we're like little laptops and we just tune into the internet, bring in what we need, and then we let go.
Well, some people will say that's the way we're heading. But
yes, well, yeah, I think there is I think so. I think we could become too like AI if we link too much to technology. But I feel we're almost like we're biological computers ourselves in a way, and we can connect and tune in, and I feel instinctively we just know. And, I always feel, go with your intuition. People say go with your gut feeling. Your gut feeling to me is more emotional. But to me, it's more about the heart and just saying, well, let's be heart led. And, so.
Well, you mentioned what I just said about, I think there's a lot of people, there's quite a few people that would say that we're being led into a position where we're going to be programmable, so that it will take us away from those inner feelings.
Yeah, I feel absolutely. I feel there's a real possibility, and I think a lot of, when you think about it, are a lot of films that, are they sort of predicting what's coming? And, I think to me, spirituality is about consciousness. It's about raising your consciousness. And, and I always say that to people with writing, when you write a character or you get an actor playing, a good actor will never play the bad guy because nobody sees themselves as bad. So that the bad guy in the film doesn't see themselves as bad, because that's almost like a pantomime way of looking at it. So you have to say what's driving someone to be what they are. So somebody who might be a killer in a story or in real life, their consciousness is at such a level that they can't actually, if they were at higher consciousness, they wouldn't kill. So, to kill another human, you've got to really be in lower consciousness to be able to do that. And it's a difficult one, really.
Yeah. I think what they began to do with films like that, they blurred the lines between good and bad, didn't they? So you're like a good,
yes,
the goodie had a little bit of bad in him, and the baddie had a little bit of good in him.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's I always think of like Star Wars when Darth Vader is revealed as Luke's father, and the way he looks at him, and so it's like I think the experience we're having here, I think we're spiritual beings having a human experience, which a lot of spiritual people will say, and we're in a physical container to get around in. But I think we're here to raise our consciousness, to realize that it's almost like we're meant to reveal to ourselves the secret of what we really are. And I think on a deeper level, we've forgotten what we are. And as a child, I've always, I always remember thinking, when you had to go shopping with your parents, and for me, I always used to think, why are we doing this? Why do people do this? And I could never understand it. For me, it just didn't make sense why you do this. And, I just think we do a lot of things because we do. And, people believe things because they've been told things. And there was something, I made a little note actually earlier about, I did a film a few years ago about domestic abuse, and it was a drama, and it was about how domestic abuse affects children. And we created a resource to go with the film, and we did a section in it called on beliefs. And I kept thinking, let's challenge people on beliefs. So at the beginning, a screen comes up, and it says the current world population is 7 billion, true or false. So if you click on true, it brings up a quote, and I think this is accurate from what they say. But it says the current world population, according to a study done in 2011 by the United Nations, says that the current world population is 7 billion. And then I put a line underneath that said we don't know for certain because we haven't counted them ourselves. And that is the only truth in the statement, because if we've been told it's 7 billion, it may be 7 billion, but we can't be sure because we haven't had the experience of it ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right. There's no way we could ever know that. I don't even know if they would know that, really, would they?
Exactly. And I think, well, how do they know? But it's this thing of asking why. Well, why is it 7 billion? How do we know it's 7 billion? And I just think it's asking questions. And I think there's nothing wrong. And I think if people get defensive because you're asking questions, then that says something about them on an emotional level, what's going on in their world. And I just think asking why, and for me, I've even as a kid, I always felt, well, why are we here? Where do we come from? And I feel, I've always felt very different, and I've never really sort of conformed. I conform in some ways, I suppose, but in a lot of ways, I just feel, well, why do we do this? And I just want to make films that give people the opportunity to ask a question and say, well, why? Oh, that's interesting. What's the possibility? I just feel nowadays a lot of people are very ready to discount things too quickly. And, it's like everything's become very polarized now. And I just think, I wish there would be more discussion, and just, general discussion, open discussion about, especially about spirituality. Yeah. And there's a lot of venues online where you can talk about it, but I think people who are not sort of, haven't been attracted to that because they might think it's a bit quirky and a bit cranky.
Yeah, because you need to seek it out, don't you, really?
You do need to seek it out. And I think The Lawson, I think that the good thing with the story is that it's very entertaining. We've got a fabulous cast in it. There's lots of visual effects. There's an amazing music soundtrack on it. A great team we had working on it. But what it does, it prompts some questions, but it doesn't give you any answers. It's not there to tell you what to believe. And that to me is what it's about. It's like saying, here's an idea, here's a story, what do you think? And, I've had people, I remember a guy came to one of the cinema screenings we had, and he contacted me and he said it took me 4 days to get over it because it's made me question all of my life. And, some people will just say, I thought it was entertaining. I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh or whatever. A lot of people said that it made them cry. But we were at a film festival in Canada, and it was on in a cinema in Canada, and Linda Marlowe and I went, and this woman came up to me at the 2 days later at the awards ceremony. She said, I saw your film, and she said, I just have to tell you that it's completely changed my life. She said, there was a decision I should have made years ago, that I should have made. And she said, since watching The Lawson, she said, I've made that decision. And it obviously affected her on such a deep level. And it was almost like, here's Sylvia right at the last moment of her life. And she's unfulfilled. And that's sad that we would get through life not listening to our inner self. We can always just brush it off. But, I think there was a woman, I can't remember her name, but she was a hospice nurse. And she wrote a book, and she said that the biggest regret of most people on their deathbed is that they by other people's dreams, by what other people wanted, and rather than what they really wanted. And people in our lives, parents, teachers, society, governments, all kinds of people influence us to live a certain way. But actually, what's in your heart? I think. That's tough. It is tough. It's not easy, and it's not always easy to find that. No. Not everybody can find that, but I'd love to think that more people can start to find it. Yeah. I think there is change going on. I think there's change going on.
I think it's amazing that even just one person coming up to you and saying that, it must make it feel like everything's worthwhile. Just that one person, because there must be lots more people thinking the same thing.
Absolutely. What was incredible is that she must have recognised it because we did a Q&A in the cinema, and the fact that she found, she sought me out sort of thing and came up to me, and it really, for me, it just felt wonderful. And we won quite a few awards with the film, and it's lovely. But to me, the real reward is actually things like that. Somebody coming up and saying, it's made me stop and think about life. And, that's the most wonderful thing for me. So, and I think filmmakers have a responsibility because we're actually, audiences are allowing us into their world on a very deep level at some cases. And I think you have a responsibility to make sure you're not, messing people up. Yeah. And I think television does do a lot of that because, I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on that affects people without them realising it.
I agree. And, are there another series of showings coming? Am I right?
Yes, well, we've because we've done a number of streamings online, and the film we're doing sort of blocks of streaming every so often. We haven't released it on a bigger scale yet because we're planning to do it as a series. So we're looking at working with partners to do that. But we I think this is from when this comes out on the 5th of April. It will be online, so people can watch it for free at www.thelawson.com. And it's thelawson.com, so people can click on that. There's lots on the website. There's lots of interviews behind the scene. We've just made a series of behind the scenes videos, so you can see how the film was made. And we've got a lot of social media there, so people can they can join us on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Lawson. And also we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. So we're doing an exclusive streaming of the film through April, so people will get a chance to watch it, and it would be lovely to get some feedback if anybody's watched it and would like to get in touch.
Well, I'll put this link out on my Paranormal Dimensions page anyway, Colin.
Lovely, thanks,
and hopefully
David.
we'll might get some more feedback.
That would be amazing, and it'll be lovely, and it'd be great to. We've got trailers on there, so if people want to watch the trailers, and it's an unusual film because it's spooky, funny, and emotional, and it's one of those stories that you know because it's 26 minutes, we can't give away too much in a trailer because it's going to spoil the film. And but if somebody's a little bit spooked by seeing the Reaper, I would just say, just look through your fingers because it won't freak you out. I think I think a lot of people, once they get to a certain point after it, they think, oh. And something else kicks in, which takes it to a different level. So
yeah, it makes me think that there's a few old classic series that were just in the half-hour section, but they gave some really good stories, didn't they? Things like the Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone. I think they were just half-hour runners, weren't they?
Totally. And the great thing nowadays is that, particularly with streaming on Netflix and Amazon Prime and those kinds of streamers, that the length of a film is not so much of an issue as it used to be, because obviously on television you have to conform to a particular length. And, a lot of series that are on, they might be 40 minutes, they might be 30 minutes, or, and I think the length can change. And, but there was a series I was going to mention that is on Netflix at the moment. I don't know if people have seen it. It's called Surviving Death.
Yes, I've seen a couple of those.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, really interesting. Very in-depth shows, but yeah.
Totally. And I would highly recommend it. There's 6 episodes on Netflix. And the first one, I think it sort of looks at near-death experiences, and there's a doctor talking about it. But the one for me is the last one, which is about past lives. Right. And to me, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And it's about children who have recounted stories that they, like they've had experiences that they would never have had. Because I think one boy is only 3. And he even got a name of it, and they researched it, and they found it to be.
Isn't that fascinating? And when I've read books with all that, it just blows your mind, doesn't it?
It does blow your mind, and I would say, just be open-minded about it, and the other world is for some people they're freaked by the idea of something supernatural, and some people just think it's crazy. And it's silly, but I would say, everything's worth a little bit of exploration. And there's a little story I'll tell you, and that if we've got enough time. My friend of mine, I'd been to see Sally Morgan for a reading, and it was way back. And a friend of mine, she was interested in it, and her husband said, I'm a 2 + 2 = 4 person. And he said, but I'm open, I'm open to the idea. And he said, and I remember saying to him, if you're meant to see her, you'll get a sign. And it was almost like it just came out of my mouth. And I thought, why did I say that? Because I've never said that before. Anyway, he used to go out running, and he said I was running around a park, and he said I felt that, I was thinking about Sally, and I was thinking, why would I want to go and see Sally Morgan? Why would I want to go and see her? And he said I was running, and he said, I got to a point where I was out of breath and I had to stop. And he said I was leaning over, looking down at the ground, and he said I was standing just by a manhole cover. And he said the most incredible thing is in the cement where they'd obviously cemented round it, somebody, obviously when it was wet, had written a word on there, and it was Sally. Somebody had put their name, Sally, in the concrete. And he said, it was just at the time I was thinking, why would I go and see her? And he said, I've been thinking about it running around the park. And he said, from that moment, I knew I had to go and see her. And he did. And I understand he had the most amazing experience. So, it's kind of like we live in a world where there's a lot of messages, but because we're in a busy world, we don't always see them. And it's paying attention to them, because they can be quite subtle.
That's a word I learnt off the Police, you know, the rock band many years ago. Synchronicity.
yeah.
I'd never heard the word before that album came out.
There's always something. Yeah. And it's almost like the universe conspires to, you know, when we shot the film, when I had the daydream, the house where we did the exteriors is actually next door to where I live. And, so I'd seen it in the daydream, but after we'd shot it, before we shot it actually, I remember going to a party in the village at Christmas, and there was a guy and his wife had moved in called Tom and Laurel, and somebody said, "Have you met Tom?" And I said, "Yeah." And this guy said, "Do you know what he does?" And I said, "No, we didn't talk about work." And he said, "He's a film composer." And, so we got chatting again. I met him down the pub, and he's done you know, quite big stuff, and he met up and read the script, loved it, and came and saw us filming, and then he composed the music, and I thought, how incredible that I was just...
Again, isn't it? It's amazing. It's like things are guided together, aren't they? I've seen that a few times in my life, I know that.
Yeah.
You know, when I've been brought to you know, to meet other people, and it just seems to, it just seems to come at the right time. That's all I can put it down to, as well.
It does, and again, it's like when you look back and you see how you've met people or things have happened, and you know, it's like everything, you know, leads to where you're meant to be going, but because we're in a material world, we can get impatient, and especially nowadays, as we said earlier, you know, everybody wants everything now. And of course, sometimes, you know, there's that old line, isn't it? Good things come to those who wait. Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. And I think you've got to, you just have to play it out, I think. And I always think, you know, that there's that line is it's not the destination, it's the journey. And, you know, for me, it's wonderful to share the film and to see, you know, to be with an audience. That's the key thing, of course. But actually, the things you learn on the journey, and just incredible. And I feel, having done the film, I just feel that I'm a better filmmaker. I'm stronger at what I do. I feel more driven. I'm more passionate. And, you know, even though it took so long and it was hard work to make the film, I just want to keep going. So I think, you know, and I'm also, I feel, people use the word retirement too loosely, because somebody once said, and I don't know who said it, but they said work is the action of the heart. And I feel we should always be doing something. And the idea of retiring is, I think a lot of people say retire because really they hate their job and they want to just stop doing it. But I think you've got to do something in life, and you've got to add value to life, not just for yourself, but to others around you and to our society. I think we have to add something to what in society. And
well, as we know, I mean, most of the big directors, they keep going until they drop, don't they? Really, we've got, you know,
absolutely,
the Spielbergs,
they really do.
Now, you know, even Clint Eastwood, he's still going. He doesn't need the money, does he?
Clint Eastwood's incredible. No, he doesn't. It's because he loves what he does. And in fact, Linda Marlowe, and I know Linda won't mind me saying, but Linda's 80, and she at 62, she learned how to do the trapeze for a show. And she's going to revive the show, depending on how things go this year, but if not this year, next year. And she's actually currently relearning how to do the trapeze at 80. And she's incredible. And you'd never think she was, because she's got such passion for what she does, and she just loves it. And I think when you do what you love, and I know it's difficult for a lot of people to find that, but if people can, I think it's the best thing you can do is just say, well, what makes me lose time? I think it's the thing, and it's not always about the money. Yeah, we need money to live, but it's about, money shouldn't be your only motivation for doing what you do in life. Because I think money confuses things. Yes, you need money because we have to live. And, but it can't just be the only reason why you do what you do. And because I think it clouds things, because money to me is energy. And I've always found, because, you know, I'm freelance, and you have periods when money doesn't come in, but money always seems to come in when you need it. It's kind of really weird. Something turns up. Yeah. And that's another, when I was working in employment, you get your monthly salary and it always comes in. But when you don't have that, you begin to realize that something else is going on, because that's not always there. And you realize, hang on a minute, that just turned up when I needed it. So you get to see that something else is going on, because the routine part of it's gone. And, but yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about you personally, maybe your own abilities, your own psychic abilities?
Yeah. Well, I think since I've done sort of more healing work, because I have regular crystal healings, and I did the Alexander technique, and I've always kind of looked after my health.
See, I've never heard of that, the Alexander technique, I must admit.
Haven't you? Yeah, and it was FM Alexander, who was an actor. He found that when he was on stage later in life, he started to lose his voice, and he couldn't understand what it was, because he wasn't ill or anything. And he started looking at himself in the mirror, and he started realizing that in certain situations his neck muscles would tighten, and he learnt to find ways of releasing. And over time, he obviously developed this technique called the Alexander technique. And I know Aldous Huxley, the writer, he used to, he always said he used to take drugs to write. So he'd kind of go into the other world through drugs.
The future, I would add.
Absolutely, very much so. And he did the Alexander technique, and FM Alexander did it with him. And he said that you've got to commit to it for 30 days, every morning for 30 days. And he did. And he said that after he'd done the Alexander technique, he realized he didn't need the drugs, because it released whatever it was in him. And what I found, that as I did more healing, I found that, you know, whether it's me becoming more psychic, but I have done some channeling, and I find that actually channeling is what I do when I'm writing, really. So something else is going on. And I sort of know things. I kind of have instincts about people, and I think that's what helps me with writing. I can kind of look at somebody, and I always get a feeling like I know what's going on inside them emotionally. I never used to. I feel as I'm more tuned in within myself, I can see it more readily. And but one of the things I did do, which was the most mind-blowing thing for me, was that I did what's called a life between lives regression, which is where you're taken through hypnosis, through a past life, and then they take you what they would say is in between lives. And it was the most amazing experience. And in the life I went through, I was a doctor, and I could see the study, I could see herbs in bok jars. It was quite incredible. I mean, it was probably in the 1800s. And I remember then the hypnotherapist, Debbie Bromley, who's a life between life regressionist, she took me she said, we've got to take you through to your death. And I was lying on a bed, and I got two grown-up children and my wife at the time, and I got pneumonia. But suddenly all these people kept coming in, and they kept coming in the room and paying respects to me and thanking me for what I'd done for them as a doctor. They said if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be as, well, or wouldn't be here. And all this kept coming and coming. And then eventually, when I did pass over, I could see myself from above. And I remember me, Colin, crying on the sofa, on this bed, while I was having the hypnotherapy. So me in this life. And eventually, when I passed over, I started laughing. And she said, "Why?" The hypnotherapist said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Because I'm going to see my father or my grandfather, and I can't wait to see them." And then when I got there, I was then taken to a point where I reviewed the life. And there was this guide, or whatever you want to call it, said, "You had the perfect life. Can you remember why you had the perfect life?" And I said, "No, I can't." So he said, "Right." And he took me into a room where there were 7 people sitting behind a table, and I could name all 7 of them. I can't remember their names now, but they wrote them down. The therapist wrote them down. And there was a woman in the middle, and she said to me, "You had the perfect life. Can you remember?" And I thought, I wish somebody would tell me about his perfect life, because I can't remember at all. So basically, she said to me, every time you've gone into a life and you've wanted to share this spiritual knowledge, you've been persecuted for it. And she said, so we gave you a life where you could share the knowledge without, anything happening to you. And the key moment in the life was all the people coming in at the end saying thank you, and you realizing the effect of you sharing the knowledge. And which was the most incredible thing for me. And then she said, they said, right, we're going to skip you forward now to becoming Colin. And they said, the hypnotherapist said, Debbie said, how do you become Colin then? I said, well, I've got 4 choices. And I said, and you bring it up, you try the energy on like a suit. I mean, people say this sounds absolutely crazy, but this is how it felt. And she said, so how do you choose Colin? I said, well, I've whittled it down to 2. One's a male and one's a female. And I said, but in the end, I've decided to be male because I need a male voice vibration to be able to share the knowledge, because it will be heard better even in the time I'm going into than a female voice. And I said, there's 2 things that I want. One is that I want to be physically protected, and the other thing is I want to be in and out. But I had a palm reader said, you're going to have a very long life because you've got a lot of work to do. And for me, I think that perhaps I'm a messenger in this life, and I'm here to share messages, whatever they are, through film. And that's what I love doing. And I love making films. I love entertaining people. But to have that experience through hypnotherapy, some people might say it's a bit crazy and, it's a bit nutty. But again, I would say, well, go and experience it. If, the only way to do it is to experience it. And Debbie actually trained with Michael Newton, who was very famous for it. And he had he was a clinical hypnotherapist, and he had a client who just suddenly regressed. And he never believed in past lives, absolutely didn't believe in it. And he started to then look into it, and they started to research what people were talking about, and they found a lot of the stuff to be very accurate. So he then spent the big chunk of his life then researching past lives, and then developing this idea that we go to somewhere in between lives. The other thing I meant to say was that when the guide was reviewing the life with me, I had the most incredible smell during the hypnotherapy session of orange blossom. It was so strong, and the weirdest thing is, whenever I smell orange blossom, way before this happened, is that it's almost like, the only way I can describe it is like it sends me to heaven.
Yeah.
So is it? Yeah, and it's like a memory, exactly, David, of is that heaven, going back to that other world? I don't know, but it was an amazing experience, and I would encourage people to have experiences. But again, if you're meant to find someone, just put it out there and they'll turn up. You'll meet someone who'll say, oh, here's somebody you could go to. So you don't have to necessarily really hunt them out. They will turn up. And there's a great thing that somebody once said to me, that when the pupil is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's been absolutely the case for me. Whenever I've been ready to learn something, then the next teacher turns up.
Well, I think that's very true, actually. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer than others, but they will eventually turn up somehow. I think it depends on the strength of the vibrations you send out, probably.
I agree, because that's another thing with healing, is that, whatever you give out is what you get back. So I'm a great believer in what Gandhi said, is be the change you want to see in the world. So if you're an angry person, and you're just, you've got a lot of angry people around you, you need to heal your own anger. There's too much blame, I think, in society, where we want to project, it's the government's fault, it's somebody else's fault. And actually, you've got to own your own issues. You've got to heal it. And it's painful. That's the thing, to really heal. Sometimes you might go somewhere you don't want to go, but if you really want to heal it, you've got to be brave and do it. And, but I think that's a barrier for a lot of people. The one thing I always say to people is, like, if you take a poultice and you put the poultice on your arm or something, then you get terrible pain. And what people do is it's like they're blaming the poultice for the pain, but actually it's the poultice that's drawing the poison out that's giving you the pain. And it's the poison coming out that's the pain, that's causing the pain. So that's the way I look at it. And
well, it's the same as if you've been shot. To dig that bullet out, it's going to be painful. You know?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. But you're going to have to go through it in order to get there. And I would say, be patient, trust, have faith. If you really want to, look for something or experience something, put it out and trust, and don't think when it's coming to you, because we don't know. None of us know. I think, I think I've been waiting all my life. I've been making films since I was 13, and, hopefully I'll have, the extent of the audience is building for me, but, I might be 98 when it happens if I'm still going.
Well, hopefully.
Who knows?
Hopefully,
you have to just do
I
it.
think you've got a few years left in you yet, Colin, so.
I hope so, yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, it's been an amazing experience. To be able to do The Lawson has been amazing, because it's been something it feels very personal to me in what I believe, and to be able to share a story in an entertaining way, because I think what it's got is it's got a popular feel to it, and I that's what I'm all about, really, is that I don't want it to be too heavy. I want people to enjoy it, but also think about things, and yeah, definitely.
I must say, I do regret that I didn't get to see it on the big screen, but
yeah, it's a shame, actually, because it looks stunning on a big screen. I've seen it quite a lot on a big screen.
Well, a lot of us have got massive televisions now, but it's not quite the same, is it?
No, it's not the same. It's amazing. We did a screening. Molinaire is a company that did the colour grade of the film, and they were amazing. They did The Crown, and they did The Killing Eve. They've done some really big stuff, and we did a screening at their screening theatre, and it just looked mind-blowing on it. And you see so much more detail in it, because it was shot at very high quality. And for me, it's quite weird, because often I think, thank goodness I'm not actually with people when they watch it, because people's televisions are all they all look different, and I get paranoid. I'll be sitting there with the controls trying to change the brightness.
If you're like me, I had to, when we moved, I bought a brand new TV, and when we first got it, I just was not satisfied with its setup. And one night, when we were working to bed early, I thought, I'm going to have a play around with this. And I played around with all the really minute settings, and I'm like, right, I've got it. It's perfect now.
Wonderful.
But
you're a man
it's
of
just
my
like, I was one of these people, you just can't, now, leave it alone. Don't touch it.
Exactly. You got it right. Exactly. And it's funny, because I've seen stuff that I've done on other people's TVs. And
how can you watch it like that?
Yeah. And of course, the thing is, a lot of people probably don't notice it because they're used to it. But because you've made it at high quality, I know the quality of it, and I know what it looks like. So it's quite hard to do that. So I'm quite pleased I don't.
I think one of my pet hates is the aspect ratio when someone's watching something when it's elongated or something. You think that's just not right. You shouldn't be watching it like that.
Absolutely. I've actually been in the cinema once where they got the borders incorrect. Yeah. It was they had moved. So I actually went up and knocked on the box to get them to change it, and because I thought I can't stand it because I'm not seeing the picture as I'm meant to, and so I think it's I think it's quite funny going up there, but I'm quite happy to do that. Really.
We digressed a bit, but it's quite. But I think it's all part of the watching it to perfection anyway, isn't it? So.
It is, and when we did a screening, we did 4 screenings at Cineworld, and they were brilliant, and they put it on, and because everything's digital now, it all goes in a drive, and so they put the film on, and on their biggest screen, and they've got a 6-screen one in Bedford. We did it, and it was in Dolby 5.1. It sounded amazing, and. It was, it's incredible. And then I kind of thought, and then I thought, am I happy? And I phoned them and I said, can I come back? And they said yes. So they were brilliant. So we did a few more tweaks and things, and it looked great. So, but I think it's good. I think it's good for an audience, because the thing with cinema, and I hope cinema will pick up again when things open up eventually. To me, watching a film in a cinema is wonderful because it's such an immersive experience, because you're in a darkened room. you know, when you're at home watching something, it's kind of easy to be distracted.
Take a cup of coffee or go for a wee. Or, it's
yeah,
quite the same.
You can drift off. But it's like you've paid your money and you've got your seat and there you are. And I think you should. I think it's the best way to watch it.
It's quite easy to fall asleep at home as well, isn't it? Whatever you're watching.
Yeah,
even if
is.
it's something
Absolutely.
really gripping, you just think, suddenly you're gone.
Yeah, exactly. And also you think, well, I can stop it and then I can carry on. But at the cinema, you can't do that. So.
Well, I hope it does go out to the cinema again, because I think I'd like to see it on the big screen. But
would you? Yeah, we may do some, you know, because there are more people that want to see it on a big screen. So we might set one up. And the great thing for people is if they do want to see it on a big screen and we do see something, and also to keep up to date on the project and how it's going forward, is to subscribe to the website. So just go on, we're going to start doing more social media now as we're doing the stream. And if people are interested, and I'm really keen to hear back from people. So if anybody wants to get in touch,
take note, everybody. It's thelosson.com.
Yep.
And as I say, I'll put the link on the Paranormal Dimensions page for everyone who looks at that.
Lovely.
And when it goes out on the YouTube video, I'll put some links on there. I could actually put your own trailer out if you'll let me have a copy of it to put onto the video.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah,
so when it goes out on YouTube,
you
can see the trailer as well. But
yeah, fabulous. Thanks, David. That'd be great. So amazing.
Anyway, Colin, it's been fascinating having you on, and thank you so much for making the time to come on. It's been great.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you. Yes, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me. It has. Yeah, really, really quickly. No, it's been great. Thank you for asking me, and thanks for all the work you're doing.
I'll do my little bit. I mean, I didn't think this show would last through about 3 shows, but we're on about 100. Your show's 109 now, so we're doing all right.
Oh, amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, no, well, I'm really pleased to be part of it, so thank you.
Hopefully,
well
when all the next films come out, and hopefully I'll see you before that anyway.
Absolutely, yeah, very much.
You can come back on again and tell us about the next lot. And when you make
definitely.
the James Bond film,
absolutely. Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah.
Anyway, joking aside, it's been I'm very honoured to have you on, Colin, and thank you for coming and thank you for making the time.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to you again soon.
Much. Yeah. Take care. Yeah.
You take care of yourself, Colin. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Right, you've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions. I'm David Young on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.